Welcome to World Affairs Mandarins. I am Niranjan Chandrasekhar Oak from Center for Indo-Pacific Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. And along with me is Sandesh Satish Samant. He is lecturer in Ramnarayan Ruya College, Mumbai. So we are going to talk about what is going on in Thailand. Why are these protests being taking place in Thailand for past few weeks? So Sandesh, why don't you start by explaining what is currently going on in Thailand and why are these protests taking place?
Uh, Thank you, Niranjan. You know, uh, we have been seeing that since about July or August, September, October, we have been seeing that a lot of protests are going on the streets of Bangkok, and especially in the last week on 16th or 17th November, the military actually came down very strongly over the protesters. And it sort of reminds us of the events that happened in the Arab world about 10 years ago, and it reminds us of those protests. And these are similar protests where there is no one leader who is actually leading the protests, but people have come together on roads to protest against the existing government and protest against even the monarchy. The interesting fact about this year's protest is that people are actually targeting, they're raising questions against the monarchy. Thailand has a history of military coups as well as rewriting constitution multiple times. Uh, and therefore, protests is not something new for Thailand. We have seen the bloody decade of 1970. But this time, or all this while people were protesting, never ever they targeted the monarchy. And for the first time, people are raising question against the monarchy, and therefore we can see that the global media are right now involved, or they are focused. Rather, they are discussing how different these protests are. What is the importance of these protests, and why are people so fed up with the monarchy? But before Niranjan, we begin with all of this, the reasons for the protests and other current affairs and other aspects. We would like to know that since you have been studying Thailand for many years now, and that is your area of interest, we would like to know how exactly is the socio-political structure of Thailand. We know it's our neighboring country, but we still don't know much about Thailand when it comes to economic structures, political structures, and all of that. The only thing that we know about is tourism. So we would first, like to begin with that part.
So Thailand is a constitutional monarchy with a special place for the king, and the sovereignty is shared between Thai people and the king. Now, with respect to the current crisis, we have to talk about four protagonists in Thai polity. First, King Bhumibol Adulyadej. Second protagonist is army. Third is Mr. Thaksin Shinawatra, and fourth is King Wajira Longkorn. Now, King Bhumibol Adulyadej, although this name sounds complex, if I break it into two, that Bhumibol is Bhumi Bal. Bal is power, and Bhumi is your land. And Adulyadej is Atulya Tej. It means incredible radiance. So, this King Bhumibol is reigning Thailand from 1946, and he passed away just a few years ago, that is in 2016. He was genuinely loved and respected among Thai citizenry, and he had elevated himself above all the organs of Thai polity, such as military, judiciary, political parties, and civil bureaucracy. The king had developed ties with all powerful groups in the society, and some commentators have called it network monarchy or royal network of allies. He was the final arbiter in Thai polity. His source of power were constitutional guarantee and his immense charisma. He always favored a prime minister who is positively disposed towards him and dependent on him for charisma. In return, the king bestowed legitimacy on such leader to rule the country. Now, second protagonist is the army. Thai army is one institution that is eternally present and deeply involved in internal affairs of the country. Since 1932, it has carried out nearly a dozen of coups. What they have to do after overthrowing the elected government is just to go to the King Bhumibol and seek his blessings to legitimize their actions. Thus, the army has quid pro quo with institution of the king. Our third protagonist is Thaksin Shinawatra. Mr. Thaksin Shinawatra is a businessman who became Prime Minister of Thailand in 2001. He was popular leader having strong rural support. His policies were perceived pro-poor and were satisfactorily received by citizens of Thailand. He was extremely charismatic and had an ability to get re-elected in subsequent elections. However, the army did not let it happen, and currently is in self-exile outside the country owing to corruption cases against him. And our fourth protagonist is King Wajira Longkorn. He is the son of King Bhumibol and he is current king of Thailand, and he has an image of flamboyant brat who is good for nothing. He is extremely unpopular among Thai people and commands no moral authority whatsoever, like his father. Now, what is the current scene? Now, what has happened is that then military general, Mr. Prayut Chan Ocha, overthrew a democratically elected government of Mr. Thaksin's party, led by his sister, Miss Yingluck Shinawatra, in 2014. Previously, the military ousted Mr. Thaksin in 2006, who enjoyed immense confidence of people due to insecurity felt by a royal network on account of his popularity. They could act against popular leader with impunity with the blessings of then King Bhumibol, who is no more. And since he is no more, there is no moral compass left in the country to justify yet another coup. Both these institutions, that is military-backed politician and monarchy, are broke, and hence the current crisis has genuine potential to snowball into a major democratic movement in coming days. As I have explained the political structure of Thailand, Sandesh, will you please explain what happened after 2019?
Yes. In 2017, Thailand for the last time wrote their constitution. I mean, as I have mentioned before, that Thailand has actually written constitution multiple times. And this constitution came into force in 2017. And according to that constitution, Thailand actually conducted elections in 2019. Now, there is a very interesting structure that this constitution actually offers. We have actually seen the role of military in entire Thai governance, other things. So, Thai constitution, the current Thai constitution, actually creates a very interesting structure where the lower house of parliament has about 500 members, and the upper house of parliament, that is Senate, has 250 members. Now, the interesting part of this Senate formation is that all these 250 members are actually backed by the military and the monarchy. Okay, so they are appointed by the military and the monarchy. So, when in 2019, when elections happened, actually there were two major parties that were actually conducting or they were running the race, and a party called Few Thai actually won the highest number of seats, but they could not cross the majority mark. Okay, but they were the largest party. The second party that actually won the highest number of seats was Palang Pracharan. And Prayut, the current prime minister that you mentioned, Prayut actually belongs to Palang Pracharan. Now, an interesting fact about Palang Pracharat is that most people believe that it is a party that is endorsed by the military. It is a proxy of Thai military. So here we see an equation. You have 250 members in the Senate that are appointed by the military. You have a political party that has got the second highest number of seats. Also, many people believe that the elections were rigged by the military. So that is another thing. So when it came to formation of the government, the 250 members of Senate actually supported the candidate that was given by Palang Pracharan. So the mark of 370 was actually crossed by Palang Pracharat very easily because of the Senate support. And that is how you have Prayut as Prime Minister. And at the same time, there was another important party, which was comparatively a very new party called Future Forward. Now, what is the special thing about this Future Forward? It is a political party which was largely supported by the youth of Thailand. And this party, in their first ever attempt, they actually won 81 seats in Thai elections. And when that happened, there were a lot of resolutions brought in Thai parliament against this party. Also, there were a lot of accusations made saying that this party received a lot of foreign aid during the time of electoral campaigns. And then a case was registered in Thai judiciary. And in February 2020, Thai court actually dismissed the party members, and it dismissed the party entirely. And that sort of created an anger in the minds of young people. What you see, the current protests, these protests, I mean, the protests were going on since last year. But after dissolving Future Forward Party, a lot of young people got really fed up. They got really angry with this entire system, and that is why they came on roads. What we see or what happened after March was, globally we know pandemic and the situation of pandemic. For the same reason, Thai government also imposed national emergency, citing pandemic as a reason. But by July, by August, the protesters have again come on roads, and they are now accusing the government as for not handling the pandemic situation also very well. So a lot of things have actually piled up, and now their target is actually the monarchy. But Niranjan, the interesting fact is, while all this is happening, we still see that although people are coming on roads and everything is happening, the government is actually maintaining legitimacy. Monarchy is maintaining legitimacy. So how exactly that is happening? It's an interesting equation that is unfolding in Thailand right now.
So, Sandesh, that is really an interesting question. So, I spoke about two institutions that are broke currently. That is monarchy itself and military-backed political leaders. So, let us talk about monarchy and current unpopular king Wajira Longkorn. What he has done, he has made sure that he has exclusive control over one, money, which is to the politics what oil is to automobile vehicles. Two, army, and three, internal polity. So what he has done in 2017, he amalgamated his personal wealth and Crown's multi-billion dollar holdings by taking over Crown Property Bureau. Now the bureau is estimated to be about 30 billion US dollars, such a whopping amount. Then he placed army units under his direct control, bypassing normal chain of command. He also forced Bangkok-based army unit to leave the city and empowered the army faction that is loyal to him. So he has made sure that none of the army units will go against him and do something silly like some kind of coup. And thirdly, he dissolved Privy Council, which is a powerful advisory body to the king, and took away its powers to act as regent. Also, he intervened directly in Thai elections, which is unprecedented. He ordered his sister, not to run as a prime ministerial candidate for a pro-Thaksin party, thus openly favoring a military-backed party. Now let us focus on what military-backed politician Mr. Prayut Chan-Ocha, the current prime minister, has done. He has tried to one. He went on image makeover overdrive. Second, he made certain constitutional changes, which you have also mentioned. And third, he has used the Thai laws arbitrarily. So let us look at the first thing, image makeover overdrive. After dethroning democratic elected government, Mr. Prayut tried to project himself as benevolent leader of the country. He wrote a song, Return Happiness to Thailand, with lines such as, "We will do what we promised, we are asking for a little more time." The song was widely aired on state radio and television channels. He also published his biography titled "His Name is Tu," referring to his nickname Uncle Tu. He also hosted a weekly Friday TV program where he publicized developmental efforts of his military government under the guidance of Thailand's late King Bhumibol. He changed the constitution and made sure the army has majority in the upper house, as you have mentioned. And after manufacturing such a majority in parliament, he is now innocently calling protesters to come to parliament and debate the issue peacefully, where he knows that he enjoys majority. He has also used Section 44 of Thai Constitution that gives military unaccountable powers to issue orders against any activity the government deems inappropriate. He also uses sedition laws and laws dealing with computer crimes. This is how both these institutes are trying to maintain hold over Thai polity. But tell me, Sandesh, why the protests against the king are unprecedented? Why they are unprecedented and it has never happened before?
Yeah, as you know, as you mentioned that the protests are unprecedented against the king. All the things that you have mentioned till now about the monarchy and all of that, even all of these things are actually unprecedented for Thai population. Currently the sign that the protesters are using are the three finger sign, and that's a very popular sign you might have seen across media. That sign comes from Hunger Games, and that is the relevance. So the other day when the king was actually passing from the roads of Bangkok, the protesters directly showed this sign to the king, and it is extremely disrespectful. The cause or the main reason why this time the protesters are against the monarchy is because over a period of time they have realized that the problem about all these democratic institutions and all of that, till now, whenever a problem arose in Thailand, the king actually stood by the protesters. He actually stood by his people. He understood the problems of the people. But the recent king, the current king, is actually not really empathetic towards people. He does not want to understand what the people are going through. And moreover, there is a nexus between military, the existing government, and the monarchy. So just by targeting military or just by targeting the so-called elected government, it is not going to resolve any problems. So if you want to address any problem, if you want to hit the roots of any problem, it is the monarchy. And the problem actually lies there. And for how long are you really going to keep quiet against the monarchy? And therefore, you see a lot of people, coming out in red t-shirts and, protesting against the monarchy. And at the same time, you have certain people wearing yellow t-shirts, that is the color of monarchy. They are also coming on the roads now and they are supporting the establishment. They are supporting the monarchy. So that is a very interesting equation that is actually happening in Thailand. While at one point of time at our west, Pakistan is going through a lot of crisis, and we see a lot of political protests happening in Pakistan. We also know what is going on in Chile in South America. We also know the things that are happening in Nigeria against a new police law and all these things. At the same time, Thailand, that is our neighbor, with Indian Ocean and with Andaman Nicobar Islands that we have in Bay of Bengal, we actually share maritime boundary with Thailand. So Niranjan, when we are discussing Pakistan, our media discuss Pakistan, America to a great extent, but at the same time, we have actually, or unfortunately, we have actually ignored Thailand to a great extent. So, how do you look at this entire scenario? What do you see the future of it? And do you see any impacts of this entire thing for India? Or how should India react to all these issues? So, I guess we should take this last point and then we should conclude.
Yeah. So, as you rightly said, that Thailand is our neighboring country, and still that is out of our consciousness. Consciousness of our strategic community. So Thailand is geographically located in the Indo-Pacific and has coasts on both sides, on the side of the Indian Ocean as well as on the Pacific Ocean. There is also talk of development of Kra Canal that will help bypass the state of Malacca. So it is going to have a geopolitical significance. Moreover, the relations between Thailand and the US have been strained after bloodless coup of 2014. Under Mr. Prayut Chan-o-cha, Thailand has increasingly been arming itself with weapons from China in spite of being treaty ally of the US. Even during these protests on October 15th, Beijing's top diplomat Wang Yi, China's foreign minister, he visited the country and has offered support and much needed investment to Thailand's embattled government of Mr. Prayut. Although Bangkok is courting China, it is unlikely to go far in that direction. It does not want to put all eggs in one basket. Thus, it strives to maintain healthy relations with other nations such as India, South Korea, Japan, among others. It has cordial relations with India, and India is also earnestly engaging with its eastern maritime neighbor. So I think India will continue to engage with Thailand, irrespective of what happens internally in that country, without interfering in any of its internal matter. And I hope the relationship will go on like this eternally.
Uh, Thank you, Niranjan. I guess in the shortest possible time, we have actually covered the issue of Thailand. Uh, I hope, in India, when people are talking about neighboring countries, while we are discussing what is going on our northern boundaries, while we are discussing what is happening in Pakistan, what is happening in Nepal, and the consequences of all these things on the politics of India, or India's foreign policy and all these things, Thailand is something that we should be thinking beyond the usual. It is the history of Thailand is also very interesting history, and as now we are looking towards, we are not just looking at East but also acting with the East. So when you have Look East and now you have Act East, I guess larger Indian population should be more aware of what is happening in our neighborhood. And Thailand is one such country that we should be discussing right now. So thank you so much, Niranjan. It was a fruitful discussion. And thank you to all the people who are watching this video. So thank you all.